The film begins with a scene from a little town in Mumbai, India. Our primary protagonists, Michael and his newly pregnant wife, Maria, are introduced here. Michael, enchanted by the gorgeous metropolis, advises that they relocate and live in Mumbai permanently. He then approaches a random little child and wonders if staying here with his wife forever is a good idea. But we then cut to 6 years later, when Maria awakens from a horrific dream and begins slowly. Michael hit her, seeming enraged over something. While Michael is soothing her, the camera moves to Michael and Maria's family includes their 2 children, Oliver, a son, and Lucy, a daughter. The following morning, the couple begins their day with breakfast with their daughter Lucy and their dog Winston. We notice something strange here. Oliver, the little child in the family photo we saw previously, is not to be found. Overall, the family goes about their daily lives as usual. They even have a maid named Picky. After breakfast, as Michael prepares to go for work, Maria is seen having a mental breakdown, while Picky, the maid, looks on in sympathy. They've actually been in Mumbai for the previous 6 years. Later that night, Michael returns home to discover his Maria fast asleep while watching an old family movie of the 4 of them playing piano together. In the video, Michael intently watches his baby Oliver before approaching his wife and pulling up the cover. However, an empty pill bottle falls, and it turns out that Maria isn't sleeping, she overdosed on something. Michael summons an ambulance, while Maria, who is asleep, recalls a horrible recollection from her past in which she was in a vehicle accident with their 2 children. As she tries to free her children from their restraints, the car is rapidly sinking. She manages to rescue her daughter Lucy, but Maria discovers Oliver's leg is trapped beneath the car seat. Unable to save Oliver in time, the young boy drowns. But Maria manages to bring Lucy to the top. Maria begs for aid and tries to swim back down to get Oliver, but the villagers prevent her from doing so. Return to the present. Back in the present, she is now in the hospital, but Michael is assured by a doctor that his wife will be okay. Picky, the maid, approaches Maria at the hospital and says she has a way to bring her son back so she may say goodbye. Picky then tells a story about a temple in the woods near her hometown that is claimed to blur the barrier between the realms of the dead and the living. Picky also admits that she understands grief because she lost her daughter as well. To connect with the dead, Maria apparently only needs to bring her son's ashes and distribute them down the temple's stairs, then lock herself inside the temple at night and wait for her son to come to her. According to Picky, Maria will be able to communicate with her son via the temple's entrance, allowing them to say their final goodbyes. When Maria has healed and returned home, she mulls over what Picky told her about the temple. Later that day, she sees Picky praying in front of a shrine for her late daughter. Maria agrees to these stipulations, and the 2 walk to the cemetery, where numerous men are digging up Oliver's casket. When the casket is open, Maria insists on viewing Oliver's body and even reaches for Oliver's favorite plushie, Khan the tiger, but she is shocked to find Oliver's rotting arm. They proceed to build a funeral pyre, with other seemingly random tribesmen watching and praying beside Picky. Picky reveals that they are the Akori. They cover themselves in the ashes of the dead and feed on the dead because they believe it helps them connect with the dead. Picky then drives Maria to the train station, assuring her that she will inform Michael about what is going on so that Michael is not concerned. Maria begins her journey to the lonely village. The following day, she is left off just outside the woods and immediately enters there. She continues on foot till she reaches the temple, passing several dead crows along the way. Maria makes her way up the steps and into the temple. She goes outside to scatter the ashes along the steps as directed, then returns to the temple. Maria then shuts herself inside, holding a candle, and waits for nightfall. When night falls, Maria begins to hear someone breathing from within the temple. This piques her interest and prompts her to venture deeper into the temple, where she discovers a cave. This is where things become strange. She feels a gust of wind blowing towards her, as if someone had just passed her, followed by another gust of wind that blows out her candle. She strikes a match, and a crow falls dead to her feet, decomposing almost instantly before her eyes. A mummified woman with her face buried in her hands also startles her. When the lighter burns out, the terrified Maria returns to the main hall and attempts to call her son's name. Then, all of a sudden, the temple's entry door begins to bang loudly, until she hears Oliver's voice and the banging stops. Maria pushes her ear to the door, relieved and overjoyed, and apologizes for leaving Oliver to die. Of course, Oliver doesn't blame her. But being the little kid that he is, he tries to open the door, wanting to come in and touch his mother's hand. Maria informs him she's not allowed to open the door with a heavy heart, knowing it's against the rules. Hearing this, Oliver bursts into tears and declares that he must return home. Maria begins to panic because she wants to talk to Oliver more, so she does something she isn't supposed to do. She, however, finds no one outside. She screams for Oliver, and when she looks around, Maria flees the temple, shocked and terrified. Meanwhile, the terrifying statue inside the temple begins to shatter. Michael is still awake at home in Mumbai. Back at home at night, Winston the dog begins barking despite the fact that no one is outside. Little Lucy is playing in her room the next day when she hears a disturbance outside. She dashes out and discovers Con, Oliver's favorite plushie, on the stairwell landing. She takes it up and begins to leave when the door to Oliver's room opens. Later that day, Maria returns home, and Michael expresses his disappointment in her because her unexpected absence made him unwell. Maria promptly apologizes, explaining that she is trying to improve herself, and they share a love embrace. The sound of Winston barking wakes Maria up at night, leading her to take the dog outside. Soon later, she decides to pay a visit to her sleeping daughter because she misses her. But suddenly, out of nowhere, she hears the floor creaking inside the bedroom as if someone is inside with her, so she listens in for a few moments before dismissing it. Maria discovers Lucy singing in Oliver's bedroom the next morning, and instructs her to play somewhere else. As Maria prepares to depart, the toy box within the room collapses, spilling alphabet cubes spelling Oliver. Maria cleans it up again and proceeds downstairs to join Lucy. But she pauses in terror when she notices Con the tiger plushie sitting on top of the piano. Lucy, who appears unfazed, says she wants to show Maria something. She then begins playing a tune that used to play on the piano with Oliver, just as the piano continues to play on its own. Maria decides to wash the tiger plushie while crying in despair, realizing that Oliver's soul is with them. When she tucks Lucy in that night, Lucy begs her not to tell Michael about everything, because Oliver appears to be hiding something, but he won't tell Lucy what. Maria then goes to Oliver's room and places the tiger plushie on the bed. However, a storybook falls from the shelf and a chair is brought closer to the bed. Maria immediately recognizes the request and begins reading a bedtime story to the ghost of Oliver. When Michael the husband returns home later, Maria joyfully greets him, which perplexes him. Unbeknownst to the little family, leaves begin to fall and rot in the courtyard. Maria awakens from her slumber that night. Con the plushie was sitting just in front of her on the bed. Not only that, but she can hear Oliver calling her name. However, then, Maria finally woke up. Fortunately, it was all a dream. Vicky sees that one of the home plants has perished in the morning. The family's gardener then approaches her and leads her outside to show her that every single plant in the yard has unexpectedly dried up and perished, as have all of the fish in the pond. Lucy starts wailing at that point because the family's pet birds have also died. Maria then takes Lucy to the ocean to dispose of the dead birds, like Indians do. But then, out of nowhere, Maria turns around. They are startled when an Agori tribesman begins chanting while lathering ash over Maria's face. They take a three-wheeler cab, but it is stopped due to a car collision ahead. Maria investigates the ruckus and discovers a man dead. They arrive safely home, and we skip ahead to later in the evening, while a thunderstorm rages outside. Lucy is awake and watching TV, and we can see Oliver's figure in the background. When Maria bathes Lucy, she notices that she has a bite mark. Lucy expresses her dislike for Oliver since he is cruel to her. Maria, enraged by Oliver's actions, goes to his room to confront him about the bite mark. Instead of responding cooperatively, Oliver moves the tale book closer to her and forces her to sit on a chair. Maria tries to refuse, but Oliver slams the door shut. Later, the evening, Maria agrees to read him a story but warns him not to hit Lucy again. Later, Maria receives a phone call from Michael, informing her that he will be arriving home late tonight. That night, the mother sleeps next to Lucy and awakens when she hears the piano playing off-key. She goes downstairs to look at the piano and discovers the tiger plushie dismembered on the floor. Someone then knocks on the door, causing her to step out, where she discovers an Agori tribesman in the garden. She threatens to contact the cops, but the man refuses to go. Instead, he points to a position behind her, and when she finally looks back, a terrifying thing crawls up towards her. She flees the figure and returns inside, terrified. Vicky, who witnessed this, confronts her and tells her that because Maria broke the rule, Oliver's soul, which was not supposed to be in this world, is now putrefied. Furthermore, the terrifying figure who attempted to attack her outside was Miatu, the gatekeeper of the underworld, who is now awake and has fled the temple through the open entrance. Mitu has arrived to return Oliver to the world of the dead, and she will slaughter everything in her path. Picky then instructs Maria to destroy all of Oliver's possessions in order to free him from this dimension. Maria, unable to let go of Oliver, accuses Picky of insanity and returns upstairs. Lucy is crying on the bed, facing the wall. When she arrives, she then approaches her young daughter. But it turns out that it is not the real Lucy. The following day, the family heads out to lunch. Maria, who is afraid of being at home, offers to her inattentive husband that they take a family trip to see their relatives, which Michael enthusiastically accepts. But then Maria notices bugs everywhere. Fortunately for her, it's simply a hallucination. She snaps out of it, and the two realize Lucy is not in the restaurant. Maria, overcome with fear, begins to wander the alleyways to hunt for Lucy till she briefly encounters Lucy fleeing and runs after her. She then comes to a dead end, and instead of seeing her daughter, she sees Mitu move to attack her, only to vanish when Michael appears with Lucy. While this is going on, Picky gets busy at the family's home, trying to get rid of any trace of Oliver in the house. She comes inside to fetch a can of petrol after dumping the very last garbage bag to join the mound. But all the doors swing shut and she is locked in. Shortly later, the door opens and she goes outside to burn Oliver's belongings, but her dead daughter's figure emerges from the pond water and begins calling for her. Of course, it's not her daughter, it's Oliver posing as her deceased daughter. Picky rushes to investigate after hearing her daughter's voice and discovering her daughter's red ribbon in the pond. Later that day, the family returns home to find Oliver's belongings piled high in a heap of garbage bags outside the house. Maria gasps and calls out to Michael as they explore their garden. The spouse comes across the horrifying sight of Picky dead in the pond. Michael attends the funeral pyre for Picky, while Maria stays at home with Lucy. When Maria tucks Lucy into bed for the night, Lucy asks whether Oliver murdered Piggy, to which she replies that it was an accident, and Maria allows Winston to sleep with her. Maria, who has realized she needs to make things right now, goes outside and destroys Oliver's belongings immediately after leaving Lucy's room. A stranger can be seen standing behind Maria as she watches Oliver's belongings burn. Maria is called back to the house while she is outside when she hears the dog barking in Lucy's room. Surprisingly, Lucy is no longer in her bed, so Maria searches the home for her, eventually finding Lucy swinging on a swing in the garden. Maria then rushes over to Lucy and hugs her. Michael returns home at the same moment, and it is at this point that Michael realizes Maria has set fire to Oliver's belongings in the garden, which enrages him. He attempts in vain to save what's left, as Maria says that everything must burn because Oliver returned from the grave and killed Picky. Michael, who has no understanding of what's going on, believes she's mad. Maria tries to convince Lucy to confirm, but she refuses for some reason. Michael chooses to take Lucy back to her room to tuck her in. But while Michael is looking away, Maria watches Lucy's eyes change. She now realizes Oliver has possessed Lucy, but Michael is still skeptical. The husband takes possession of Lucy and confines Maria in the bedroom, promising to bring Maria aid. On his way out, he notices the Akori tribesmen chanting and yelling in Sanskrit in the yard. The husband returns inside and grabs his phone to call the cops. While the possessed Lucy is alone, Winston begins barking at her, which irritates her, so she goes for a knife and stabs Winston the dog, killing him. Michael approaches her in shock, and she stabs him in the gut. The possessed girl then acknowledges that she is no longer Lucy, but Oliver. Maria enters the house through the back door and searches for Michael. She then discovers the possessed Lucy in Oliver's bedroom, surrounded by tribesmen executing a ritual to.
She then finds the possessed Lucy in Oliver's bedroom, surrounded by the tribesmen who are performing a ritual, presumably to exorcise Oliver out of Lucy. Right outside the bedroom, Murtu appears and begins crawling up the staircase. One of the tribesmen moves to stab the little girl, but Michael stops him. Maria pleads and convinces Oliver to leave Lucy's body alone, by promising that Maria would keep him company this time. So Oliver leaves Lucy's body, and enters Maria's body, before she is immediately stabbed by the Aghori. The next time she wakes up, she finds herself alone inside Oliver's room, face to face with Murtu herself. Murtu walks up to her and reveals her face. This time, Maria finds herself waking up on the steps outside the temple, and briefly believes that she is alive, while Michael's voice can be heard calling for her. She finally realizes that she is dead, and Michael has summoned her here to say his proper goodbyes to her. Maria then screams for him not to open the door, but he opens it and the terror repeats once again.